I think that the last thing I would say, because I'm saying this because two parents asked this question. They talked about, how do I get my kid to be more involved in the home? Because the parents were like, they seem entitled that I'm supposed to do their laundry, I'm supposed to clean the house, and they don't contribute in any way. Totally understand this. I think all parents go through this. I think that we have to recognize that, like the woman who asked me this question, she said, I'm teaching my kid who's 10 how to do laundry. And he keeps saying to me, why am I doing my laundry? You've always done my laundry. And she was kind of annoyed, right? She's like, well, it's time to learn. But isn't that a valid point? Like, from the kid, you've always done my laundry. Why am I doing it now?
When did we renegotiate this agreement?
Correct. So you can then talk to them about why you're renegotiating instead of being pissed or thinking your kid's entitled.
No.
They haven't had enough life experience to understand all this
There's no reason for them to think otherwise until you have a conversation with them.
Exactly. And be really careful of your tone when you do it, because you don't want to be like, well, because I think it's time that you get your act together. Like, you don't need to come at them strong. You say, good question. I have been doing your laundry up to this point. Now I notice that you are a responsible kid. And I realize that there's a lot of things that you can do on your own, that now you can be a part of this and take care of your own stuff. And I see this in you. And the kid may be like, I don't want to. And you're like, I get it. It'll take time. It takes time for kids to learn new behaviors.
Well, that's the thing. We've talked about this. We have, I went through this time when I made sure that our kids were making their own lunches.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. This is a good one.
So because I don't want kids thinking that they don't have to make their own lunches before school or whatever.
And that was your take. Yeah. My take, and what I would say to them, is it makes more sense for you to make your own lunch, because you know what you want. You know how much cheese you want on your sandwich, and so I always kind of talk to them about not you need to make your own lunch because I'm not going to do it for you, and more about why this makes sense, because I feel like that sits better with them.
Well, for sure. And I just need to own mine is I was afraid of us raising spoiled little brats.
Okay.
So it was, okay, you're going to start making your own lunch. And then once they did that for a while, they're like, it's mornings suck for a kid. Right. And now even when we have two out of high school, but we would make their lunches for them in high school because it was like a deposit in the morning so that we could do it. So, but I needed, for my own sense of self, to make sure that these kids had the ability and the discipline and the work ethic to do it. Once I saw that, then I'm like, okay, now you, Kathy, convinced me to be like, can we just help them out a little bit?
Well, and again, nothing exists in a vacuum. It's not like you either make your lunch or you don't. There's all sorts of pieces here. When the girls were little, all they had to do was get up, put on clothes, put on shoes, and then make their lunch and go. When your kids get into middle school and high school, there are all sorts of things they're doing in the morning sometimes that are different. You know what I mean? Like there's a little more sometimes difficulty because of their age getting up, so they're not getting up as, bright and shiny as they did when they were little. And sometimes they're like getting something done, or sometimes they're like texting with someone who's picking them up, and they have a little more work. I'm putting this in air quotes, work to do in the morning. And I see them doing all these things, and my ability to recognize that and say, well, let me help you with this part. Then it makes sense. I'm not doing it to coddle. It makes sense.
And I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Devil's advocate, just for fun. They're going to be like, I'm thinking like a dad's like, yeah, but they got to figure out how to do their stuff the night before, so they're not doing it in the morning.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, because there were days when I didn't do it for them.
Yeah.
Because I was out the door, or something was going on with another kid, or I was traveling. So they do know how to make their lunch.
Yeah.
And they also know that they can buy a piece of pizza at school if their lunch isn't made. Like we have plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D, right? I just want to make sure they eat. And I think another thing we're teaching our children is how to help other people. And there is a difference between, I am going to do everything for you and be a helicopter parent, and let me help you get out the door in the morning. I think those are two very different things, because I see my kids setting their own alarm, getting up, they're getting dressed on their own, they're doing their own homework, they're figuring out their own ride, they're figuring out their after school activities. So I can make your lunch today. I just kind of view things in a very common sense way, and to your point, Todd, part of the reason I was able to do that is because they went through such a long period of time where they were doing it on their own.
Yeah.
So I wasn't concerned anymore. Are they capable of it?
Right. I'm with you, babe.
So I think that what we have to recognize with our kids is sometimes when we get frustrated that they're not doing something, we want to quickly label it entitlement. And while someone listening may bring me an example where I'm like, okay, that is some entitlement, right? We need to talk to them about that. I think a lot of it is them learning new skills.
Yeah.
And we have to be somewhat patient and understanding, of why they want what they want and the culture they live in. Okay. And not believe they should be like us as 80s kids. Like we're having two completely different experiences. If Todd and I haven't hammered that home enough, where they're not supposed to be like us, they're different. So we have to realize that we're having different experiences, and B, we have to talk about these things without shaming them. And not rolling our eyes and saying, oh, your generation, because you are disconnecting immediately from them if you do that, because they're not going to tell you things.
Connection is food.
It is.
Yeah. I just wrote some notes from the podcast that we are recording right now. Intrinsic, extrinsic motivation. We talked about grades, controlling parents, conformity,
growth mindset,
why our kids get annoyed at us. So
compassion,
lunch making, household chores. So hopefully you got some good stuff out of that.